su mi svi, brate, kao samoanci, ono. I ako ja ne pazim šta jedem, a da ja treniram, izgledam ko goli kurac, dobro.
Koliko još ima?
84. Loši, koliko loši.
500, brate. Koliko jedeš? Koliko sati jedeš?
Evo, nek bude da mi je fast 16 sati. Znači ja ti legnem, završim s obrocima u ponoć, nastavim sutra u 4 popodne. I onda, brate, se jede. Ali jede smeć. A ne, smeć.
Znači, džaba je sebi taj fasting, brate, koji dalje jedeš. Ja ne razumijem. Znači,
jedino što ne skačem, zbog fasta ne skačem mnogo s kilagom. Znači, još ne sjećam. Ako nisam na fastingu, znači ako jedem u 2 igram ili pratite već 90%, onda stvarno nisam. Onda ne uzeti šmećem.
Ne znam, nisam probao bi, samo eto da je probao da nemam iskustvo, ali ne sad.
Hajde smo se dovati, znači hrane i sve. Šta ti, koje ti umije ne gledati?
Pa što ti, dono sam ti nešto. Ali rekao si da je juče krenuo sa pripreme, ali ja bih rekao, brate, ne veze, nije prvi put sigurno da preskupiš dan.
Meni je sve ime čin.
Brate, tu nam je kum Terza. Volite, brate.
Ajde donesi nam ima taj zakine.
Ajde, donesi to u kesu, brate, to je bazi što s time kesu.
Ali mogu da prepotkaju. Tvoj omiljeno, jel?
Je, okremljivo.
Ili krempita ili onaj krempita.
To sad je ovo nešto bolje, ali...
To za mene.
Morao sam se.
Evo je, 3 večer nasa. Možda je neko biti umazan, viljuška, kašika i makar. Ako može.
Ti još nisi parao, brate, sve za tebe, brate. Ne znam koji tvoj imaš ovdje, brate, ali verujem da je muški broj. Već malo.
Voliš šarene čarape?
Voliš šarene čarape, brate, da možeš da mi nosiš, da me kažeš.
Ovo je tvoj velik kođa, tako?
To sam sve ja, brate.
Ovo je
To sam sve ja.
imam Tokio, ovaj veliki svijet. Ajde se dovatimo to odmah. Ovo je kao, ovo je šurda plozu, šurda lajka.
Da.
Pitaj, šta znači šurda? Šuki.
Pa, brate, šurda ti je, eto, neka stara turska reč, postoji kod nas, postoji u svakom zemlji, postoji, znači, stranci, znači, da li su bili Turskijali ili šta god bili, i to je kao neki slang u inostranstvu.
Kao kod nas baki.
Kao kod nas baki. Bajo. Evo, gledaj.
Da li možemo još jednu skoku da nema da gospodina ti...
Ne, jasno, postoje. Ja, brate. Ali, očekuju. Dobro.
Ali kao...
Znači, pazi, ti već je... Ne znam da će što, i to ti kažem nešto kada mi jedeš sve 5 godina.
A vidi, i da baš ima, baš jedan šlađe, jedan šlađe.
To ne što.
Reci mi ovo, žena kupuje, ima neko posebno mjesto.
Pa znači, svugdje gdje ima restoran, ne treba ga reći. Tako možda probam, da u moždu, brate, ima od 1 do 20. Samo prvi u spisak uvod. Tako možda znam gdje je najbolji, gdje je najlošiji, gdje je najbolji. Ovo je sve najbolji.
Ovaj izveo,
Ali, danas, malo sam se razočarao, nije bio toliko točno ko si uvijek, ono, brate, ima sad nekako kupao, brate, mleku, a danas mleku. Mleku pa,
koji je sastav ovoga, majke?
Brate, 3 vrste mleka i šta će gledati, šećer, brate, samo to mora znati.
Ovako, ja sam, ti sam neki ljudsko točno, prvi što je njemu znao, ali vidi, znači ne izgubi već, zbog njega 5 mila, neka ga izgubi. Brate, zanimljivo.
Jeo si sigurno pred veće po meni, da li kažemo dakle ili da ne kažemo dakle.
Reći da se dakle reklamira i slobodno.
Reklame, to je šehter, to će da. U penjačku gdje je penjačka?
Pozdrav za šeker, brate, ovo je
Šeker, brate, ovaj, znači, najbolji vam je, znači, veće, tako neki kuvari, brate, pričamo, o čemu šta i kako, brate, jedi ga. Kad molimo na jezero, znači to je nekaj, kad smo svinje, znači molimo kopu, pomeni znači, po meni, znači, točno, mesno, metano, konsistenci znači, krema, je sunče.
A reci mi, ja znam što god da radim u sva, da jedem, da mi se vidim što ženo tako da. Brate, do sad slučaj, koliko je dugo ti ovoga? A?
A gledaj, ajde ne učne, vladi, 2 godine.
Konstantno, da.
Govorio je konstantno, kad nemoj sad da me napraviš žute ko...
Jesi li sad svaki dan?
Da, jedem. Ima jedan narod. Njega ima tu jedan.
Nema to da ubrao što ide.
Ako neko samo zna da ima da probam šta je...
Eto, pišite komentare. Malo sam te prekinuo ka slušavaj, naravno se objasnio i dolaziš na ideju svoj kao vrsta holdinga nekog, jel? Brand. I šta imaš majice, što se...
Pazi, ja sam to sad sve zatvorio pre ove televizije po Srbiju. Imao sam majice, kukseve, teštire, čarape, stare čarape, ne možda svašta. A sve je vrlo kao spremljač.
Da, treba?
Sve se vanjske.
Sve se treba.
Sve se vanjske. I ovo je kao daj napravi neki dvrš. Znači, upam, napravi majku masu, da se kopati. Daj da pojećeš ljubam 20 majka. Kad ono, posle prvi zadnje 4 sata, oko 400-500 narodina majka. Prvi večer, da. Izvinite, ne moram da ti me span majka.
Ali ti sve se stalo? Stalo me se boji kura.
Jesam me hoće kura, ono se znate, može li se selima da Srbiju ne mogu da se znači, to je dio, moja neka ideja svih bilo, ja sve radim, ja na početku, znači, parkour, pa je mi početi da govorim, i to imam i svega, sve od Azije, sve. Ako ne mogu sve samo reći, mogu se ja dam samo reći, da, mogu je svodu sve, ali je tu, evo, poznam, dobro, ono sve što radi, ali to se neko malo sve dostaje, reći se, a i ovo mi je malo.
Samo idemo. A program je krivo, sve sigurno.
Hey, what's up, Simeon? Right there,
Kaže
boy.
meni,
So
kako
good
ti
to see
dostavi
you.
Crna
So
Gora.
good.
Kako bude nula,
Look, we've been working together for about a few months now, which is why I am very honored to announce to you that you are employee of the month. Huh? Anyway,
nakon 39
congratulations.
godina
Wasn't easy
života
for a winner.
u Srpsku,
Yeah, me, Lamar, and nephew Sachi with the twins. Look, man, it's been a real honor, homie. But I gotta move forward in my life. It seems like all I do is let people tell me what to do and I do it and nothing changed. Tell you what, you telling me exactly what to do. And I will very carefully explain to you why you cannot be. What? Today is repossessing vehicles that fools have purchased at exorbitant interest rates. Forget that. I never had a black son.
šta ti reći?
If I did, I want to do
Vidite,
just
najveći dio kad treba, nešto
Franklin
u životu,
has been awarded Employee of the Month.
you fucking right?
Man, we both need fucking.
Knock it off, man. Bro, after all the motherfucking work I put in, man.
Man, fuck this employee of the month shit, homie. I'm sitting up here trying
What
to
you
get
mean, fuck this employee of the month shit, man? When it's some shit that people want, goddamn it, I won't. I don't give a fuck what it is. You know what I'm talking about? I take no prisoners. I can earn this shit, big dog, big nut. My name's something motherfucking what? I want to see my name at the top of that motherfucker next to it. It needs to say, fuck next month, send me my fuck today. I demand a retrial.
Today is not just a bike. Hasn't made the payment about some kid at Vespucci Beach. His name is Esteban Jimenez. Is he in the gang? Curiously enough,
Tamo,
A tamo sam Srbi, tako je.
to je cijelo život. To je već bilo, znate šta, ja sam taj koncept, ja uvijek kažem, ajde, nemojte mu gledati, ti najveći, ne mi napravim to,
I never took you to be old hairstylist type bitch. The last all starting to make sense.
Grad ne može niko da niko. Da mi ne mora ništa. Da, znači, okej, vi ste sve regodači, ali grad, znači, ja sam iz Štokoma i ja sam iz Straške, šta već sad dođe da sam ja u Strašku, mislim, to sam bio malo. A ja sam ih 20 godina u programu. Koliko je da sve to tako? Tvoj samo da vrati samo kad govora, majte. Ne mogu kada ne mogu samo 2-3 dana, pa mi je na vjera. Nisam, ja sam možda toga u gradu, ja volim taj neki gradski život, brate, volim taj neki to, volim taj neki život, volim buk, izlaziš. Ne piješ? Ne. Ja sam malo policiju, volim koje, bukvalo nikad na životu nisam dobro.
Jedino čudo to sam vezan za Beograd, jer obično Beograd bolje radi nešto znači, a ja, brate, sve kolika, samo Beograd. I ne znam odjati ga, računem.
A to je nešto vuče, brate. Vi ste recimo, kako to da biti, recimo u Švedskoj, u Štokomu, ono drugačiji život. Kako da objeti to dobro. Mislim, ajde primjer. Toliko ljudi znamo dolaze iz Srbije dođu u Švedsku, pa tamo ih upoznaš, pa znaš ih 6-7 mjeseci, kao je on kaže, brate, meni je odlično to. Kad vraćam se Švedsku, kao što da se tako, ovdje samo se radi, nemaš života, samo, znaš, ljudi nemaju vremena za kafu, za ovo, ono, a u Rađeru, vidi da ili si došao ovdje da bi nešto promenio, znači došao si ovdje da radiš, tako je, ako to ne želiš, ostani tamo. Mi se zovemo, dolazi imigranti, dolazi jedno, drugo, treće, ovdje se ponašaju ne na srpski način, nego neki drugačiji njihov način. Znamo sve je. Onda ti jedne kad dođeš negdje dok se ponašaš ti po njihovom. Tako je. Mislim, se zoveš. I ovaj...
Ali se ponaša u Belgiji.
Se ponaša u Belgiji, znate.
Ja sam ostavio 2010. na priprve u Ostavlji. Dobro, tad je bio Gustav kontakt 10. Da, 13 godina. Tad je bio Gustav ono, nije bio su pravimo, ali bio je već svijeta naša. Bio je već ono, i mi isto najčešće godine došli. I radi polu teško, ne mogu ja s njima stvari. Ali opet mi vuče veliko, ja sam sad čuo da taj izgleda. I otišli smo bili to priprve, pa sam vidio kroz par godina, rekli smo dobar kontakt s njihovim glavnim trenerom Andreasom Michaelom, General. Ti znaš da sam tu ekipu, jer sam na neki način imaš sve sve ne. Da. Ti ješ jedan organizator. Sad si. I sad manje, ali i dalje. Najjače svetske, da, pitaš. Najjače svetske promocije, superije, recimo, mnogo je čuo je već, kako mora ja temelj?
Joj, brate, pazi, od deklipa imamo, brate, da vratimo od te neke godine.
Možda, vidi, imamo malo vrijeme ovoga.
Je, nisam u subotu, nego što prije.
Eto, vidiš.
Meni je htjela, brate, karate. Što to kam, prvi polje. I netko me pisao to, znači ja sam znaš, karate. Zato mi je bila svaki dan, brate. Vidjela nam je, znate, magdje, znate, pa ti prvi dan. I, znate, krenuo sam na poštaku u Ojvan. Znate, nisam imao pojave. Futbal, godinu dana. Katastrofa. Krenuo neku teretanu, i kad bi neka teretana prolazi, karate tuba. Znači, da vidim, karate proba, rekao. Ja probao, kad sam bio, imam 2 tim, ja. Krenuo, da bijem. To je bilo ono kao, okej, što se ne probamo. I tako je trebalo. Šta karate sam bio reda, koji je boja, sam bio mali, to sam mi ne računa. Posle kada na Žitskom dolu. Kako? Žitskom dolu.
So the faced, let me show you exactly how to use OBS Studio from scratch, and I'll cover everything you see inside of OBS Studio that you need to know if you're trying to stream online or if you're trying to record a gameplay or your screen. And OBS Studio, if you've never heard of it before, is a free application. You could download it for Windows PC. It works on Mac and Linux. And again, it's used for video recording. You could record a camera, for example, like what I'm doing here. You could record a webcam. You could live stream to any platform. It live streams to YouTube, Twitch, Facebook, pretty much any platform. I'll show you the full list when you jump in. And you could basically use OBS Studio's advanced options too to basically create a virtual studio. And you just need this free app to do it. There are some more advanced things, some other things that I recommend if you're trying to take this to the next level. But for beginners, you don't need anything but OBS Studio. I'll mention some useful things and I'll link everything in the description to make it easy to find. Let's jump in. Now to get started with OBS Studio, make sure you have the latest version of the official app. They've had a lot of changes recently, so I'm updating this video because of that. And once you do install it, this is basically the interface of OBS. So I'll briefly explain what you're looking at here, but I want to really dive into how to set it up, and then I'll show you exactly what you're looking at as we go along. But at a brief glance, right here is basically where your stream or your video recording is going to show, right over here. This is your canvas. And down here you have these things called scenes. I'll go in more detail on what these are. Sources are basically different camera angles you could add to it, images, different video clips, all kinds of different sources could be added here. I'll explain this as well. This is your audio mixer, so what you see here is the level from my microphone. Scene transitions I'll explain as well, and this is your control. So if you start streaming, this is where you would click once you set it up. There are some settings you need to know about before you do that. Same with recording, same with studio mode. So we'll explain that in the settings, but I'll get to that in a second. Right now, the very first thing I typically like to go over is these things called scenes. Now what scenes are, basically you could have many different scenes and they could each be for a specific purpose. For a long time, I only had one scene that had multiple sources inside of it. But I'll show you how to make a second scene in a second, but right now, by default, you will have something called a scene. So what you could do is you could rename this scene, right? So what am I recording here? I'm gonna do a screen capture tutorial. Let's say that's the kind of scene I wanna build. Let's say if it was a gameplay, you would just name it whatever this is going to be as your scene. The second step you wanna set up is the source. So let me go ahead and click on the plus sign here. These are all the different sources that you could actually add. So you could, for example, have an image that's part of your scene. You could have a video capture device, that's basically your webcam or a camera I'm using here. You could record your screen, so screen capture. I'm on a Mac here, so it says Mac OS screen capture. On older OBS, it was just called display capture. So if you have an older version of OBS, you have display capture. And you could set one of these or multiple different layers to it. So let me show you exactly how this works. I'm going to go ahead and do a video capture device. That's going to be the webcam that's going to kick on. And you could name any one of these. So this is going to be my iMac screen. So I'm going to have iMac. I'll press OK. And then you're going to get this window. So you want to choose your device. So the FaceTime HD camera, if you have a built-in webcam or an external webcam or an external camera, you'll see that on the list as long as it's connected onto your computer. So choose that. And I'll switch over here to my webcam to walk you through the rest of it. This is just a built-in webcam on my computer. For preset, you want to choose high here, so I'm going to leave it on high, but you can actually lower it to some of these other options like 720p. I recommend you just leave this the same and press OK. So now, you basically have a scene that looks like this. Now, it has some black parts to it, so if you record our screen, it's not going to look right. So you want to grab the corner here and basically stretch this out to fill your window. Do the same thing with your webcam if you're choosing a webcam. Now, if you look down here, I haven't added a new scene. This is just a scene that was there by default, but I do have a video capture device. I could always turn this off and on this way, okay? Now, let me show you how to add another source. So I'm going to press the plus sign, and this time I'm going to capture my screen as well. So this is a tutorial, so I'm going to talk, I'm going to capture my screen. I record a lot of tutorials this way. If I capture the screen, this is fine, I'm going to press OK. It's going to add another source. Now, my method is display capture. You could also do individual windows or applications. I'm going to just capture the whole screen here, and it's going to be the built-in display resolution, and you could show the cursor or not. I always choose to show it if I'm doing some kind of demonstration, and I could press OK right over here. Now, if it doesn't quite fit, sometimes it's going to be much, much bigger like this. You'll need to kind of drag in the corners here and make sure it fits this canvas. So these red lines are going to show you that it's going to fit the canvas like this. So now I'm behind here, so if I turn off the capture, I'm behind it, this is on top of it. So if I wanted to put myself on top, I could grab myself and put it on the top here. So it becomes the top layer like this. Now the screen is behind me. The useful thing when you do that is you could do this thing called picture-in-picture. So you could shrink yourself down, put yourself right in the corner. It has this weird picture-in-picture effect because of the way I'm capturing the screen, but I could just turn this off right over here. So you get the idea. Basically that screen is going to show up in the background. Right now OBS is open, so that's what it's showing. And I'm here in the corner. So this is a useful double, lot of tutorials, for example, gameplays will utilize an option like this. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and turn myself off too, because I want to show you audio mixer here. Now with audio mixer, you're going to have a couple of different options. You could go ahead and press the three dots here and go to properties. So the device here is the built-in microphone by default. This is one thing I recommend if you're doing this for any reason that is beyond just a hobby. Even if you're doing gameplays, you could get these USB microphones. So the one you hear right now is this one, Shure MV7. It's the one that you see on my screen capture. Let me just show you what it looks like. It's basically this kind of a USB mic, and it's just plugged in. It also has XLR and USB, so you can go to a sound mixer. But this one's going directly to my computer right now. So you could have something like that as your audio input. That's where you would change it under properties. Because the built-in microphone on any computer just doesn't sound that great. So I recommend you check that out, and I'll link that below. You can get it from Amazon. So I would set that up next, and I'll show you some more audio settings once we get to the setting tab here. The scene transition we're going to skip right now because I want to show you scenes towards the end. Right now we just could handle one scene with multiple different sources and fixing our audio, and then we could actually start streaming or start recording to our local computer here. Okay, so that was the basics of setting up multiple sources inside a scene, but we do have some settings. So I'll cover settings, then we'll come back and cover scenes, and then I'll show you studio mode and some really advanced options that's going to really take this to the next level. Okay, so let's go to the settings tab right here. Now inside of settings, the general tab, you pretty much don't need to change anything. I usually leave everything here on default. The only thing is if you're streaming, you could get a confirmation box when you stop streaming so it doesn't happen by accident, and you could get a confirmation box when the recording stopped too. I usually have just this one if I'm streaming. I don't want to accidentally turn that off. Same with starting a stream too, you may want to turn off. But under the stream tab here, this is very important because if you're streaming, you need to decide what platform obviously you're going to stream to. Typically I would do this to YouTube, but Twitch, Facebook, and if you show all, you'll see all these other platforms you could stream to as well. Okay, so I'll do YouTube because then I can show you exactly how it works. But if you were doing something like a Twitch, you could just connect your account here, and then they all require this thing called the stream key that I'll show you where to find. That is really easy to find. I'll show you here on YouTube. So we'll do this once we get to the streaming section. Right now the output is also very important. This is related to streaming and recording, so you really need to see what's going on here. They do have advanced options that I don't recommend, but the simple option you should be able to get what you need. Streaming bit rate is very important. By default it's 2500. Most internet connections are going to be able to handle a 2500, but if you're doing something like a 1080p stream, I recommend somewhere between 5000 to 8000. And then after your first stream review, make sure it's not really having any kind of lag issues and it's streaming pretty well, then you could stick with that. Anything over 8000 you don't really need, unless in the future you want to do something like in the 4K streaming. But right now, 720p or 1080p is where you want your stream to be. So I usually leave this around 5,000. Audio bit rate I leave on default, but if you go higher, it's obviously going to have better quality. The encoder, I have just this option, but if you have a more advanced gaming setup, for example, you may want to choose something that is not software based and is hardware based. I don't have anything like that, so that's fine. And the encoder preset, I just have it on very fast, and that gets me what I need. But again, you do have other options depending on your speed of your computer. The recording, if you decide to record, this is not for streaming. I use this, for example, I'm recording right now, I'm using a different setup right now, but you would record, it would choose you a path here. So you can choose a desktop path, for example. So I could just save it to my desktop. The quality here, I usually have it on medium, but you could do large file sizes here that are the highest quality. You could even do lossless, but these get really, really huge. So I just usually do medium and they look fine. My videos usually are in medium file size when I use OBS. This option I do change. By default it's on MKV, but MP4 is probably the most common and the one that's compatible with most devices, so I would choose it there. Everything else is the same here, and when you're good with this setup, just press apply. We do have a few more things here. Under the audio tab, everything's fine here. I'm going to change these two. But for desktop audio, if you want to record that, go ahead and choose the default. Don't leave this on disabled. I could record your desktop here. And for the mic, I showed you how to set it up in the other page. But again, by default, it's going to be the built-in microphone on your computer, so I recommend you change this to something like a USB microphone. There are plenty set up. For example, you may want to choose something that is not software-based and is hardware-based. I don't have anything like that, so that's fine. And the encoder preset, I just have it on very fast, and that gets me what I need. But again, we do have other tip right now because I want to show you scenes towards the end. Right now, we just could handle one scene with multiple different sources and fixing our audio. And then we could actually start streaming or start recording to our local computer here. Okay, so that was the basics of setting up multiple sources inside a scene, but we do have some settings. So I'll cover settings, then we'll come back and cover scenes, and then I'll show you studio mode and some really advanced options that's gonna really take this to the next level. Okay, so let's go to the settings tab right here. Now inside of settings, the general tab, you pretty much don't need to change anything. I usually leave everything here on default. The only thing is if you're streaming, you could get a confirmation box when you stop streaming so it doesn't happen by accident. And you can get a confirmation box when the recording stopped too. I usually have just this one if I'm streaming. I don't want to accidentally turn that off. Same with starting a stream too, you may want to turn on. But under the stream tab here, this is very important because if you're streaming, you need to decide what platform obviously you're going to stream to. Typically I would do this to YouTube, but Twitch, Facebook, and if you show all, you'll see all these other platforms you can stream to as well. Okay, so I'll do YouTube because then I can show you exactly how it works. But if you were doing something like a Twitch, you could just connect your account here, and then they all require this thing called a stream key that I'll show you where to find. That is really easy to find. I'll show you here on YouTube. So we'll do this once we get to the streaming section. Right now, the output is also very important. This is related to streaming and recording, so you really need to see what's going on here. They do have advanced options that I don't recommend, but the simple option, you should be able to get what you need. Streaming bit rate is very important. By default, it's 2500. Most internet connections are going to be able to handle a 2500. But if you're doing something like a 1080p stream, I recommend somewhere between 5,000 to 8,000. And then after your first stream review, make sure it's not really having any kind of lag issues and it's streaming pretty well, then you could stick with that. Anything over 8,000 you don't really need, unless in the future you want to do something like in 4K streaming. But right now, 720p or 1080p is where you want your stream to be. So I usually leave this around 5,000. Audio bit rate I leave on default, but if you go higher, it's obviously going to have better quality. The encoder, I have just this option, but if you have a more advanced gaming setup, for example, you may want to choose something that is not software based and is hardware based. I don't have anything like that, so that's fine. And the encoder preset, I just have it on very fast, and that gets me what I need. But again, you do have other options depending on your speed of your computer. they're recording. If you decide to record, this is not for streaming. I use this, for example, I'm recording right now, I'm using a different setup right now, but you would record, it would choose you a path here. So you can choose a desktop path, for example. So I could just save it to my desktop. The quality here, I usually have it on medium, but you could do large file sizes here that are the highest quality. You could even do lossless, but these get really, really huge. So I just usually do medium and they look fine. My videos usually are in medium file size when I use OBS. This option I do change. By default it's on MKV, but MP4 is probably the most common and the one that's compatible with most devices, so I would choose it there. Everything else is the same here, and when you're good with this setup, just press apply. You do have a few more things here. Under the audio tab, everything's fine here. I'm going to change these two. But for desktop audio, if you want to record that, go ahead and choose the default. Don't leave this on disabled. I could record your desktop here. And for the mic, I showed you how to set it up in the other page. But again, by default, it's going to be the built-in microphone on your computer, so I recommend you change this to something like a USB microphone. There are plenty on the market. This is just the best I found for the price and quality. So it's not too expensive, but it's not some of the cheaper ones that don't have the quality that I'm looking for. And that's the two I change. And nothing else on this page I change. So everything's the same. Under video tab, now typically you want to change this to a canvas size based on your screen. So a lot of people have this on 1920 by 1080. And same thing as this option, 1920 by 1080. And as long as the resolution matches, nothing is required. But sometimes you could do 1280 by 720. So is HD the highest quality HD at 1920? That's 1080p. That's what you're going to be watching, but it's going to basically output, this is recording or streaming at a lower, okay? So that's going to downscale basically. I usually try to keep them the same, so I'm going to go ahead and keep them the same. No downscaling required. Now your frame rate, for the most crisp quality, 60 frames is what you want. But for regular stuff like a tutorial, I'm going to do 30 frames. Now your hotkeys you may want to use. With hotkeys you could assign shortcuts on your keyboard to all kinds of things, right? Starting and stopping stream. But this is where you may also want to get a device that has lots of this built in for easier use. So they make devices for streaming for this purpose. I'll put one on the screen here. So this kind of device you could again buy and connect to this setup if you're doing this all the time. So I'll link that below as part of the resources as well. You could change some of these default colors here. So under this tab, you could change some of these. And under the advanced tab, I also don't change anything here. There is one useful option here. If you get disconnected, it automatically reconnects. So that's enabled by default. So you actually don't even have to worry about changing that. So I'm going to press apply. That's all the settings that you need to really know about. So I'm going to press OK and come back over to my scene. Okay, now let's get to the more advanced stuff here with studio mode. So let me go over here and click studio mode. Now this is studio mode, so you get two different windows. So on one side you have the preview window. This is basically where you could queue things up to then go to the program window, which the program window is what the audience would see if you're streaming, for example, or what gets recorded. Okay, so you could transition from one to another. I'll show you that in a second. But in order to use studio mode, you need to set up another scene. Okay, so let's go over here, the scenes that we skipped. I'm going to press the plus sign, and I'm going to set up another scene. Now let's say this is going to be a presentation. I'm going to set that up, presentation, press OK. Now I have a presentation, it's going to be blank, right? Because I don't have any sources. All my sources that I set up already are in the other scene. So in the presentation mode, what I could do is press the plus sign, and I could add multiple different things again, right? So let me go ahead and add an image because I want to show you this really cool thing. I'm going to call this background. I'm going to press OK. Now I'm going to go ahead to my desktop here, and I have this really useful option that I downloaded. I'm going to go ahead and open it. I'll explain the sources where I get these kind of presentational assets and all kinds of different overlays that you could use. And now I'm going to go ahead and add a video source again. So that's under video capture device. Then that's going to be my webcam again. I'm going to press OK. Let's save that. And my device is going to be the FaceTime my HD camera again. Okay. Now I'm going to press OK. This is the same thing we set up before. I'm going to go ahead and kind of bring this down, shrink this down, and I'll need to change the order. So if I bring the video behind that one, it has a transparency to it, so it fits like this. Now check this out, one more really cool thing. I'm going to select the video, and there's these things called filters. Let me click on one. With filters, you could apply these effect filters. Okay, check this out. I'm going to apply, for example, a crop. So if I crop this, I could basically fit this a little bit better. So I'm going to crop 300 from the left. I'm going to crop 300 from the right. I'm right in the center, makes this more of a square. Okay, I'm going to close this. Now, if I stretch myself with that, I could fit myself right in this box a lot better, right? So let's say I was having a conversation with someone else. Again, I could add their feed. Let's say they had a different camera set up for them, and they would be over there, okay? And this is a Photoshop file, so I could open up Photoshop or get a free trial, and I could basically change these titles, or this is not my name, so I would need to change these inside of Photoshop. And then this just saw the Photoshop file. I didn't have to save it as a specific type of image. It has the transparency, so I could put myself behind the logo like this. But just to give you an idea where I got this is a platform called Envato Elements, and with Envato Elements, you could basically get all kinds of different overlays and other resources like stock videos. I'll show you one that I really like when I show you the transitions. And you could basically download these. They come with a bunch of different Photoshop or Figma. If I go down here, you could see Photoshop, Illustrator, Adobe XD, Figma, or Sketch. You can get all kinds of different templates for those. And then you could save them as a JPEG image, or you just use the Photoshop file and you put it inside of OBS, exactly what I did on mine. And I'll go back to the other scene just to show you. I could also add these kind of overlays as an image. So I got another one here I'll show you. I'll choose my file, and this came with that bundle as well. So I could select this one, and you can see it shows up with the transparency, right? So I could also edit this in Photoshop, put my name, put my title. Really simple to use. I didn't have to design anything fancy, and this takes the production to the next level. And I could add another scene. Let me show you this other scene here. This is going to be my intro. So I'll go ahead and add that. And this time, I'm going to press the plus sign here, and I'm going to add a media source, okay? This could be a pre-made video. So I'm going to choose that, media source, and save that. And this time, I also downloaded this from Envato Elements. This is my MP4 file. Let me go ahead and press open on it. And this one, let me press play to show you what it looks like. This could basically start before I stream something, right? So this could be playing, and if I double click on this, I could actually loop this so it just keeps playing. And everything else I could leave the same, but there's some useful option here to take a look at. I'm gonna press OK. So this is going to be my scene, my intro scene. I have my presentation scene, and I have my screen capture scene, right? Different scenes, all with different sources. But now look, if I go to studio mode, this is my preview, and this is what I'm streaming once I press stream. I'll show you that in a second and record. But what I could do is, I could queue up, as long as this is selected, I could queue up my screen capture tutorial. Now, this is queued up, right? It's not live yet. This is what's live. But if I press transition here, it's going to cut from one to another, or transition from one to another, and then transition back. Cut could be just a straight cut without that kind of a nice fade. Fade is exactly what it sounds like. Now these are where all your transitions in the scene are, right? So you can see that was based on a fade, but I could change it to a cut, I could change the duration, and I could add other ones, right? So if I wanted to add, for example, a swipe, I could add a swipe. Okay, so you can see swipe left to right, and press OK. So now if I change the transition here to swipe, and I press transition, you can see it's changed the transition. So when I'm live, actually, right, I could actually queue things up and then have other things playing live. And then when I'm ready, I could put myself with a quick transition. Now I would be live, right? Okay, let's look at the final two things, the recording option and the start streaming option. So for the recording option, it's really simple. If I press start recording, it's going to basically capture the program window if you're in studio mode. If you're not, it's still going to capture the window that you see over here, okay? Now, if I switch to a different one here, I'm going to transition to this one, then it's going to show me. Okay, now I'm going to stop recording to show you where it goes. If I go to my desktop right here, because I set my desktop as the destination, it's going to record here. So it has that, and then it should cut to me at some point if I go over here. So that's the clip, right? I just muted the audio so I can talk over it. But it's that simple, and that's the file, and it's MP4. So those are the settings I changed in order to record that way. Now let me go back to OBS. Now you also have start streaming, right? If you press start streaming, nothing's going to happen because I didn't set this up yet. So if I open that setting and go to the stream tab, this is just under the settings tab, I skipped over this in the beginning. So what you need to do is choose your service. If I'm going to YouTube, I'll choose YouTube. Connect your account to make this easier. If not, you could just add the stream key, get more advanced. So in this case, let me go to YouTube, and all I have to do is press the create option here and press go live. And I'm going to stream right now. I'm going to press start, and I don't want to use the built-in webcam, right? This makes it really simple, but I'm using a streaming software, OBS, right? I could have those overlays from Envato, I could have those intro videos, all kinds of stuff to make this more advanced. I'm going to press go there, and make sure here it's set to unlisted if you're doing this for the first time, just to test it out. So if you go over here, make sure it's set to unlisted. You could change it to public if you are comfortable and you do want to really go live publicly. But your stream key is over here, right here, stream key, right? It's hidden, but you just press copy. And then if you go back to OBS here, this is where you would paste in that stream key, right? So I could just go ahead and click and paste it. And then you're all set, you could start streaming. And on the bottom here, when you're live, it's gonna show you when you're live. When you're recording to your desktop, it's gonna show you the record, how long you've been recording. And your CPU usage and your frames per second are gonna show here. Obviously, if your CPU usage is really shooting up, it's probably, this is maybe too much for your computer, but again, make sure you keep an eye on that so it doesn't really shoot up too high. Typically, mine stays around somewhere like this if I'm doing some kind of recording like this. So I'm gonna go ahead and stop that. Now, everything I mentioned throughout the video, I organized in the description of this video, so from the microphone to Envato for your overlays are all linked below. And I hope you found this video useful. I hope to catch you next time.
We're going to cover how to use OBS Studio step by step in this complete tutorial for beginners. Hey, it's Justin Brown here from Primal Video, where we help you grow an audience and scale your revenue with online video. If you're seeing value in this video, make sure you're giving it a thumbs up. It really makes a huge difference. And all the links to everything I mentioned in this video, you'll find linked in the description box below. Let's jump into it. So OBS Studio, or Open Broadcaster software, is a powerful and very popular live streaming software and screen recording app. It runs on Mac, Windows, and Linux, and it can stream to places like Facebook Live, YouTube Live, and pretty much all the major live stream platforms. With all its great features though, it can be a little overwhelming for new users. But don't worry, this tutorial is designed to get you up and running fast and walk you through all the key settings and the steps that you need to know to host your next live stream or record your screen using OBS, all in just a few minutes. Plus, I'll also share with you some low-cost resources or tools that work great with OBS along the way, like how to get a cool animated title when you're ready to take things even further. Okay, so here we are in OBS. Now I'm going to take you through this walkthrough using a Mac, but the process is exactly the same if you're on PC as well. And this is a brand new, fresh install of OBS, so this is what you'll see if you've never opened the app before. This big black box here in the middle is your preview area. This is where you can see what it is you're going to be broadcasting out. Down the bottom here, we've got our controls. This is where we can start streaming, start recording. We can switch between this preview mode and studio mode. So if I press on this now, you can see that we have our program monitor, which is what we're pushing out. This is exactly the same as what you were seeing before. But now we've actually got a preview as well. That's a little confusing because the other one's called preview mode and this is the preview here. But essentially we can queue things up on this side, and then when we press this transition button, then it will actually send it live. So if you're going to be moving graphics and those sorts of things around and you want to not be doing it while you're live, or the viewers aren't watching what you're doing while you're live, then you use this mode, studio mode, to have that ability. For me personally, If I don't need that while I'm live, I'm going to go back to the regular mode with just the one big preview window. But this is something you can switch between while you're live. Next one down here is the settings button. This will bring up all of the settings for OBS. Now we will jump back into this one very shortly. Exit, it's pretty obvious, I'm just going to exit the app. Down the bottom here is pretty cool that you can actually see your CPU usage. So you can see if your computer is under load and you're potentially dropping frames or having a bad live stream if your computer is under too much stress. So you can see all of that at a glance down the bottom here. You can also easily see how long you've been live for or how long your recording has been going for as well. The next panel along is your transition panel. This is where we can adjust the different types of transitions we have between the different scenes. We'll get to scenes in a minute, but know that you can adjust your transitions here, or if we're back on our studio mode, your transitions are also in the middle here as well. Let's get back to preview mode. The next one across here is your audio mixer. This is where you can easily see and adjust your volume levels for each of the different elements you're going to have in your live stream, or each of the different sources you're going to have in your live stream. And next to that, we've actually got our sources. This is where we can add in all of our webcams, images, videos, websites, or anything we want to actually include and use in our live streams. And the next one across here is your scenes panel. Now this is essentially we can have groups of assets or different configurations for different elements or different sections of your live streams. So you might have a scene set up for just a full screen image of you on screen. The next scene might be your computer screen that you're sharing. And you might have another scene for you with some text on screen. And as like almost every program out there, you've also got your standard menus and options and stuff across the top here as well. So that's the overall interface. Let's jump into getting OBS set up. So come down the bottom here to settings. Now a lot of the settings in here are going to be personal preference and also going to come down to the type of live stream or the type of recording you're actually going to do. Things like how it looks, the theme, whether you want dark mode enabled or you want some other theme in here, then obviously that's personal preference. Likewise with some of these output confirmations here, things like being able to show a confirmation dialog box when you're starting a stream, or showing one when you're stopping a stream. This is what I normally have on. Are you sure you want to stop the stream? A little pop-up asks you if you want to confirm that. I'll normally have this one on. And the same for stopping recording as well, just in case it accidentally gets knocked and you don't want.
Ali čuješ? Jel čuješ što pričamo, me razumeš? Sami napiši da li si čuo šta sad pričamo.
Da, streamujem, sad streamujem, da. Nego, zato što, kako se zove, učim, da vidim kako se to radi, vrate, pa znaš. Počeo sam da gledam, da učim kako se to radi, vrate. A posle toga ostane klip, vrate. Nije ništa kao, brate, vidiš da piše uživo, brate. Ovo, sve je trenutno uživo. Otišao sam samo da popušim cigaru, brate.
Want to stop streaming, you don't want to stop recording, at least you've got a confirmation box here to maybe save you in that case. So for me personally, those two are the main ones I'll add on this window, but I would suggest that you have a scroll through this section and just see if there's anything that stands out to you, maybe at a later stage once you've gone through and set everything up, that you can then add this further level of refinement to customize things up for you. Okay, so that's the general settings. The next one down is your stream settings. Now this is where we get to choose our streaming service, whether it's Twitch, whether it's YouTube, Facebook. So these are the primary ones here. If we actually hit on show all, it brings up a massive list of all the supported live streaming platforms. So we're going to go ahead and select YouTube RTMP. Then we need to paste our stream key into this box, our unique key for our specific live stream. So I'll go over to our YouTube channel, grab the key. We'll come down here to stream key here. We'll hit copy, and then we'll go back over to OBS and paste our stream key into that box there. Next, we're going to come across to output. Now, this is where we get to specify our output settings for our live streams, but also for our recording as well. So for configuring up our live stream, we need to specify a video bitrate. The default here, 2500 kilobits per second, would be okay for a 720p stream. But with this number, 2500 kilobits per second, the higher we go with it, if we went to 3000, 3500 or 5000, the higher we go with it, the higher the quality of the stream we're going to push through to YouTube or whichever platform we're broadcasting to. But it also means that our internet speed, our upload speed, needs to be capable of consistently pushing that amount of data through to our broadcasting platform. Now I'll link this page down in the resources below, but this is where YouTube suggests which bit rates you should be looking at for the different resolutions. So this page tells us if we want to broadcast live to YouTube at 720p, the video bitrate range should be between 1,500 and 4,000 kilobits per second. If we're doing a 1080p stream, that needs to be 3,000. 5,000 to 6,000 kilobits per second. Now we can go above, but you really don't want to be going below these numbers for a decent looking reliable stream. So in this case here, we're going to be doing a 1080p live stream through to YouTube. So I'm going to set this to 5,000 kilobits per second because I know my internet speed is good enough. So that's the video quality. We can also make changes to the audio quality here as well. Now I would recommend that you're not going less than 128. The default here was 160. That's going to give you pretty good results. 192 right up to 320 will give you higher quality audio. So if you're going to be broadcasting live with music and those sorts of things and you want to have the highest quality through, then you're going to want to pick a higher quality bitrate for your audio as well. Personally, I think anything from 160 to 256 is going to give you great results. But if you're only just speaking in your live stream, then you'll be able to get away with 160. So those are your live streaming settings. If you do want to also be recording or you just want to use OBS for recording, and that's where your settings down here, you can key all of those in. The main ones being your recording format. You can see the default here is NKV. You might want to switch it to an MP4 or an MOV file. And you also want to adjust your recording quality. So in a lot of cases, you want to actually record a higher quality video than the one that you're streaming out. So higher than 5,000 kilobits per second in this case. So we could choose a high quality medium file size or one of the other options here as well. In this next area here, audio, so obviously we get to dive into some audio settings. Now there's really only a couple in here that you need to look at. The rest are going to be fine by default. The first one is your channels. By default, you want to have this set to stereo unless you specifically need to be broadcasting in mono or surround sound, 2.1, 5.1 surround sound. So for most people, you're going to want to leave this at stereo for most live streams or most recorded videos. But the one that you really want to check in here is your primary audio source, which is your mic auxiliary audio, not audio 2, 3, or 4, to the first one here. And you want to change this from default to your actual microphone that you've got connected to your computer or to your camera, which is connected to your computer. So in this case, I'm going to set it to the Camlink 4K because the microphone I'm using is going to be directly connected to my Camlink, which is connected to my Panasonic GH4. So for audio, I want it coming through the Camlink. Now, even if the default setting here of default is using your correct microphone because of your system settings, I would still strongly recommend that you're manually setting this to your actual microphone just so that you don't have any issues down the track. But this next one down here, video, this is where we get to specify all of our video related settings for the quality, for the frame rate of the live stream that we're going to be creating, both here in OBS and also to whatever we're going to be pushing out to YouTube in this case, or even to be recorded. The two of them don't actually need to be the same. So you could actually be working from a higher resolution project in OBS, but broadcasting out to YouTube or recording a video file in a lower scaled resolution. And that's what we get to specify in here. So the default here is that our base canvas resolution, our OBS resolution, is at 1920 by 1080, which is 1080p. But the default is saying that we're going to be broadcasting, our output is 720p, 1280 by 720. So I'm going to hit this little drop down arrow and I'm going to switch this to 1920 by 1080. Now you do have the ability in here to pick other resolutions. We can actually just type in a custom resolution as well. So you see that there's nothing that goes above 1920 by 1080. But if you want to broadcast in 4K, then you can actually type in the resolution numbers for 4K and you would be good to go. So we're going to go 1920 by 1080. And we're going to leave our frame rate here at 30 frames per second. This next one down, hotkeys, is where we can set up shortcut keys to be able to control OBS. So we can create our own keyboard shortcuts to do things like start or stop streaming, start or stop recording, or a heap of the other functions that you've got inside of OBS as well. So this is something that's not necessary, but it can really streamline the way that you're able to control and configure everything up and run your live stream while you're actually live. And down here under advanced, you guessed it, there's a lot more advanced settings in here. I would say the one that I do check here and make sure it is selected is to automatically reconnect. So if for whatever reason the internet drops out, that it is actually going to automatically attempt to reconnect and to restart your stream with this setting enabled. So we're going to go ahead now and select OK. And now we're going to go ahead and set up our scenes for our live streams. So So I've already got one default scene that's added down the bottom here, because there always has to be at least one that's created. We're going to rename this one, right click on it and choose rename. Let's call this main camera. Now for this main camera, we now need to specify which sources we want to have used, which cameras we want to have used in this scene of main camera. So we're going to go ahead and press the plus button. We're going to choose video capture device. Now a video capture device is any camera, any webcam that you've got connected to your computer. So we're going to pick video capture device. You can give it a name here. Let's choose Cam Link 4K and go OK. And now we're going to specify which camera we're going to link here to this video source. You can see I've got the choice of my built-in webcam, the Logitech Brio webcam, a GH5, I currently don't have connected, but it is installed, and the Cam Link 4K, which is the one that I want to use. So selecting it, there we are, works, one camera. You can see just by selecting one of the other ones, they're going to show up there as well, over here now. So for this primary camera, or main camera, we want this one as the Cam Link 4K. And you can see that the preset here, the default setting for it is 1280 by 720. Now we've already told OBS that we want our canvas size to be larger than that at 1080p. So in this case, I'm going to make it bigger by selecting high, because that's the actual setting that I've set in the Cam Link to be at 1080p, knowing that it's going to match here. So for you, you'll either pick high or you'll pick the resolution that you want to have as your camera resolution. Once that's done, we're going to go OK. And you can see here that we have Cam Link here added under main camera scene. And we also have the audio bars here working, so that we can see that the audio piece is working as well. Now inside of each scene, you're not just limited to one camera, or one video, or one audio input. You can actually have multiples. We could come back in here and we can add in our other webcam. If we go to add a video capture device, let's name it webcam, go OK. Now let's select the Logitech Brio, and again make it the high setting, and go OK. You can see that
Prova.
we actually now have two, and we can actually turn them on and off all within the one scene. So for a really basic setup, you could get away with just one scene setup, and you're just switching between the different camera angles and things just by turning the layers